Hello, my name is Al Smith, and welcome to our video, which will be describing the troubleshooting and repair of our remote Mast products. I'd like to thank you for purchasing and using these products, and hopefully this video will help you to find some of the primary concerns, be able to fix or adjust for them, and if it's beyond the scope of this particular video, you're always welcome to give us a call and request assistance that way. But we're going to start this video by looking at some of the most common concerns. And number one is the mast over time can start to wobble back and forth. This is easily corrected by using a 5/64 Allen screw, Allen wrench, and slightly adjusting. This is the guide pin. We can adjust the guide pin a little bit, very gently, just to the point where the wobble stops. Okay. And then you've got that adjusted. Very simple. One thing to make sure of is that the slot in the guide pin is going vertically so that the guide pin can open, touch the sides, and then hold that boom from moving back and forth. And that's been adjusted properly. A second concern that happens is sometimes the guide pin itself will break and a piece will come off. So in another section, we're going to show you how to do the replacement of that guide pin to take it out and put it back in. Now, one of the next concerns that has been noticed is that sometimes the boom won't go up or down at all when you try to move it. One of the first things you can do to check that, and one of the first things that happens, is there's a coupling inside that connects the shaft to the upper portion in this way. Now, what happens is this coupling will break, and to test for it, very gently grab this part of the vertical boom and lift up. If it doesn't come up easily, your coupling is good. If it does slide up easily, goes up and down, the coupling is definitely broken, and you're going to need to replace that shaft coupling. So that's one thing. If your boom does not go up and down, and it's not a broken coupling, well, then the next thing you'd want to check is your controller. Is the controller actually telling the boom to go up and down? Now, on our manual version, like this one here, first thing you would check is make sure the light is on, so you're turned on. If the light is on, then you know that your power supply is plugged in and you're getting power. And you should be able to move the stand up and down very easily. If it does not, then you might have a problem with the controller. Now, with the older style controllers, if you're looking for the light, obviously very easy to see. If the light doesn't come on when it's turned on, this particular unit has a fuse, which could have blown. And we always include an extra fuse. If you don't have one, you can get those fairly easily, even at a local auto parts store. But replace the fuse would be the first thing we would suggest. The other thing you'd want to check is the power supply itself. If this light does not come on, the fuse seems to be good, the power supply has a light on it. You know, this is unplugged. You could probably see that light is on. And that way you know that this is working properly also. If that light is not on, you may not be getting power to that power supply. So the power supply needs to be working and on, supplying power to the control. And then from the control, you'll be looking for the light on the front here. And that way you know you've got power. If any of these conditions don't or aren't there, you probably have a bad controller. This is also true with the RF controllers and the Bluetooth. They also have lights on them that will let you know if the power is to that controller. So those are some of the primary things that you would be looking for if the stand does not go up and down. Lift up to see if the coupling is broken. If it's not, then it might be your controller that's not functioning properly. Next, we're going to go to the different repairs and how to take the unit apart and correct or fix some of these situations. Next, we're going to take a look at replacing the guide pin. Now, if your guide pin is broken, you need another one. You can purchase one on our website. It comes complete as a kit. It comes with the guide pin, retaining screw, and the adjustment screw, and 2 wrenches that'll fit those. So to replace it, the first things you're going to want to do is align the guide pin with this access hole at the back of the mast. That way you can get at the retaining screw in the back. But first, we're going to take our 5/64 wrench and we're going to take the adjustment screw out. Now it'll be out of our way. There we go. And then secondly, we're going to take the an 1/8 inch socket wrench here, and we're going to remove this set screw in the back. And this retaining screw should come out nice and easy. Remove it all the way, right out through this hole. Take that out. Now the guide pin should be removable from the front. You can either pull it out or you can push it out from the back. Either way, whatever is easiest for you to do. We want to get that out. So once that's removed, you can take the new one and put that back in the same way, right in through that front slot. And one of the things you want to make sure that you do when you replace this, and you may need a flat screwdriver to do it, is the slot that's in the guide pin needs to be vertical. That's so that it can be adjusted out and touch the sides of the mast. I'll put it in vertical, get that set there. Then we're going to put the retaining screw back in through this hole in the back here. And when we put that in, we're going to thread it in. This is plastic, so we don't want to over tighten it. We want to be able to get it down nice and snug so it doesn't come out. The guide pin really isn't holding anything, just keeping the mast from wobbling. So gently tighten that in. And then we're going to put our adjustment screw back into the front. Again, making sure that this slot is vertical when we do that. We put the adjustment screw in. And when we're adjusting the adjustment screw, it only is to keep the mast from wobbling back and forth. So if you get a little bit of wobble, very gently adjust it down to tighten it, only until the wobble is gone. If you adjust it too tight, what will happen is it'll put resistance on the mast and the motor will start making more noise because it has to work harder to lift the mast up. So don't adjust it too tight, just enough so that the wobble stops. And that's the replacement of the guide pin. This next step is to show how to replace the coupling that couples the motor to the drive shaft. That's this piece here. If we go back, remember, if this lifts up and down easily and you can move it a lot, that the coupling is probably broken. If it moves just a little bit like this, it's fine. But if the coupling is broken, the way to disassemble this and take it apart, the first two steps, one is going to be to remove the guide pin. So we're going to do that as we had described earlier. And we're going to take that apart. Then once this is removed and taken out, we're going to be taking off this upper portion with this large collar. We need to get that part completely off. So now the guide pin is removed. Next step will be take this collar here and remove this collar completely and remove the boom and the entire upper portion. So I'm going to take all of this off. There we go. Remove this entire portion. Next, we're going to lay it down. We're going to remove the motor from down here. So now that we have the guide pin removed and the upper portion of the mast and the boom is removed also, the next step is going to be to take our 1/8 inch hex key, and we've got 3 screws that go around the bottom of the stand, and these hold the motor in place. So we'll take these 3 screws out, small 1/4 20 set screws, take them completely out, remove them. And once we're done getting these 3 screws removed, then we're going to use a 1/2-inch socket to be able to take this connector out. And that's this connector right here. It's the power connector. This is a 1/2-inch socket or nut driver, whichever's convenient. So now that you have the nut removed from that connector, take the connector off, and now the motor will be free. So give it a little rocking motion, and it should slide out nice and easy. And as you extract it, pull it all the way out from the other side, and this should be able to come right out like this. And this is the assembly that you're going to have removed. Now that the vertical mast in the motor has been removed, we're going to go change the coupling that's right here. Of course, on yours, it's probably going to be in 2 pieces and it's going to be broken. And as a point of interest, some of the couplings, the older version, has a different style of set screw that's used to hold them in place. But they're all SAEs. None of them are metric, so the same wrench set that you have should work for any of the size Allen wrenches. Some of them may be a little bit tighter because we do use a Loctite to retain it, a thread locker. So some might be a little bit tighter in removing. Heat is always can be used to warm it up a little bit and take it out. A hair dryer will work fine, or heat gun if that's necessary. Normally they can be removed without that. So these screws that are here holding it in place, we're just going to take them off. We're going to loosen them up. Not going to actually take them off. We're just going to loosen them. The 2 of them here, like this. Because once they're loose, then they should be able to come apart in this way here. So when you've got it taken apart, you'll have your bearing that goes on the motor, and you'll get a new coupling, and we'll put it back together. On the motor, you get a washer, the bearing, and the other washer. Now on the coupling, there's 2 different sizes, the 1/4 inch and a 5/16. The 5/16 goes onto the threaded rod, the 1/4 inch goes onto the motor. Now on the motor, you notice that there's a flat portion with a small groove cut in it. That's to line up with this set screw. So make sure when you're putting it back together, you line up the flat, set screw, and that groove all in the same place. So then we're going to put this screw down, and we're going to tighten it up. Remember, it's a small wrench, so you can only tighten it up so much. But as long as it's lined up with that slot and on that flat, it should stay on nice and secure. Then on the other side, the other portion going into the threaded rod, make sure that that screw lines up with the flat. You can see that there. There's a flat that's cut into the threads. We'll line that screw up with that, slide it into place. Then we're going to put this screw and tighten it down as well. So once that's tight, it'll all be one piece nicely secured. Now as you go to reassemble it, you want to make sure that this threaded rod is in the brass nut that is up inside the shaft there. Make sure that that's connected. One thing that we also recommend is putting a lubricant on the threads to relube it. You can use a lithium grease, or this is a synthetic grease will go on. We do not recommend using WD-40 or anything that's a lightweight oil, as it'll tend to wash out the grease that is in there. But once you've got it reassembled like this, then we're going to go back and put it back into the mast. Now that we have reassembled the motor, coupling, and the drive shaft, and we have it already inside the vertical shaft, make sure when you do reassemble it, if you don't have it together like this, that it ends up this way so that the thread goes into the brass nut, or on some of the older versions, it's a plastic nut, which is fine as long as it's assembled together like this. Now we're going to reinsert the entire piece up inside very gently into the plastic bushings that are up on the end. It's going to fit just like that. So we put it in, we get to this point, we're going to see where our O-rings are, the grommets. And make sure that these rubber grommets line up with the three holes, the mounting holes that those set screws come out of, because those set screws have to go back in through those holes for proper mounting. So you're going to very gently slide that back in. If it does seem to be tight, you can use some of the grease that we had used earlier on the threaded shaft. This grease going on the grommets helps it to slide into the shaft a lot easier. But once it's in, we get it fairly well lined up. Then we're going to reinsert these threaded screws back in. So when you're putting in these 1/4 20 set screws, the three of them that hold the motor together, make sure that the grommet is lined up with the hole. I use the wrench this way to make sure it's lined up. Then we put the set screws in, and when you put them down, don't go below the outer surface. Leave about a half to a full thread exposed so you can still feel that set screw. Don't go too deep. If you go too deep, it could hit that coupling screw that you just put in. So we don't want to do that. So put them down just so you can still feel the top half to a full thread exposed out in the surface. So once you've got to that point, the next thing we want to do is we're going to put the connector back in, put it back through the hole here, put our nut back on this side, and use our 1/2 inch nut driver or socket to secure this. Okay, once that's secure, the wire should be clear, nothing too tight, motor nice floating in the right position. Okay. As the last step, we're going to reinsert the guide pin, and as we put it in here in the front, remember that the slot has to go vertical, so up and down for proper adjustment. Let's get that set in place. You might need to use your straight screwdriver to keep that slot vertical like this and set in. There we go. Now we're going to put our retaining screw. Remember the access hole in the back? We have that. We're going to use that access hole to put in this retaining screw. Again, gently put in that screw because it is plastic, so we don't want to cross thread it in any way. We want to make sure that it lines up nice. Then to fully tighten it down, we're going to go back again with that straight screwdriver. We're going to hold this pin in straight. See, it does have a tendency to want to go a little sideways, so we're going to put it straight, and then we're going to tighten that screw while we hold it straight. There we go. And then the final piece is going to be the adjustment screw. We'll put that in the front. Then we're going to set that in place, but not tighten it yet, because we're going to put the entire assembly back together and go through the guide pin adjustment procedure to prevent the wobble from going back and forth. And that completes the coupling installation. Sometimes we have a little difficulty with the controllers. We have the different styles. You have your older style hand control with the switch. This is the newer style that we have. It's basically the same, just the lights and the packaging is slightly different. This unit here is the RF controller, or the Bluetooth looks the same. But things you want to check for is your power supply. Your power light should be on. If your light is on and you push the power, you get the yellow light. It means you're getting power to the unit. If the light does not come on, or the light can be on but the unit not work, it is possible that the fuse is bad and it needs to be replaced. It's a 5-amp fuse. Can be found at almost any auto parts store. Now, if you have an occasion where the light is on, everything is hooked up properly, and yet like this particular controller, you notice that the Even when we push the button, nothing happens going down, but wow, it goes up and not down. It's probably the switch that's broken. Now, this switch is replaceable, and we do sell it on the web store. If you have the savvy and the ability to use a soldering iron, you can replace that. Just as you can for the light and the switch, we have all these available on the web store if you want to replace these. If it's something is broken there and you're not sure what it is, you can always purchase another controller and you can replace that, the entire unit, and it's warranted. One of the common problems with the RF version with the hand fobs is always the battery inside the fob. If for some reason one works, one doesn't, it probably needs a battery replacement. But for the RF version, as long as it is plugged in, the light will come on. It does not have a fuse in it, as the new version of our hand control does not, but it does have an overload that resets itself automatically, so there's no fuse to replace. But if you have a blue light, it should be working. As long as everything is hooked up properly, it will function correctly. If it doesn't, by all means, give us a call. Contact us for any further assistance.